Monroe. Irving Powell.
Here.
Bill Wade.
Here.
Rob Nesky.
Here.
Mike Rankin.
Here.
Diana Marshall. And Bill Silver.
Here.
Can you speak up, please? The microphone
It's not
is
on.
working.
It's not on. It's not on.
Better?
Try again.
Seriously?
Okay, I'm going to introduce General Manager Bill Chapman, who's going to introduce our
Thank you.
presentation.
Well, this is pretty good because I had one thing on the list to do and now I don't have to do, and that was to introduce the Board of Directors. But I do want to say one thing about them. We're embarking on a project here that we're going to be engaged in for the rest of this year. And the whole purpose of it is to gather the information we need to make an informed decision about the future of these buildings that are owned by the association on behalf of all the members. And the board is the ones who really will have to make that decision. And regardless of what opinions you all have, and we all have them, I have my own, and I'm sure all of you do, we probably have as many opinions about what we ought to do with these buildings as we have people sitting here in the audience. But at the end of the day, the board has the legal responsibility to manage these buildings on the behalf of all the membership. And so they really have to exercise due diligence in making a good decision on your behalf. So what we did is we started doing a lot of research. Over here, Diana, there's a chair. Okay. We started doing a lot of research in 2011, 2012, gathering information about the buildings, legal constraints, zoning requirements, and all the other kinds of things that are necessary to know something about when you're engaging in a large-scale project. But the board decided at that point we had pretty much done all we could with the board and the staff working together, and we needed some professional help to take us to the next part of the project. So we actually had 5 architectural firms, 4 from California, 1 from Colorado. They came to Hidden Valley Lake, took a look at these buildings, presented proposals, prepared proposals for the board of directors, and the board of directors selected one of the firms, Williams plus Patton, which are in Roseville, California, which I understand is somewhere near Sacramento. Yep, okay. I have the pleasure of introducing 2 very talented, very experienced gentlemen who are going to be helping us make decisions this year. Terry Green. Terry, if you would raise your hand. He's an owner-principal of the firm, Williams plus Patton. He's the lead designer for that firm, and he's been with them for 26 years. Greg Tonello. Greg is a principal of the firm as well, and he's their project manager. He's been there 27 years. He does project management, construction administration, gets involved in sustainable design issues. And these folks have done clubhouses, golf clubhouses all over the western part of the United States. They've done many projects for the Trilogy organization. They did the Cache Creek Casino. They've done projects in Rockland and Lincoln, Trilogy projects, La Quinta, Monarch Dunes, Redmond Ridge, Brentwood. They've even done some projects in China. If you want to go over and take a look at them, be my guest. But they've also, and one of the reasons the board selected them is they're not focused totally on golf clubhouses. They've also done a lot of community centers and public buildings that are for the recreational and social activities of the membership. And again, a lot of those for Trilogy, Citrus Heights Community Center, Fairway Canyons in Beaumont, Lincoln Crossing in Lincoln. So they've done a lot of these. And I actually have a booklet that was provided to us. Jackie, where did that go? You have it. Oh, I don't have it at all. Jackie has a booklet. Where are we going to put that?
Back on the round table.
Okay, back at the round table. So when we have a break and you want to take a look at some of these projects that these fellows have done, there's a lot of pictures of them in that particular pamphlet. Okay, so those are the introductions. I want to also give you a little bit of an overview of how we're going to proceed this evening. First of all, I want to look at expectations that you all might have of what's going to happen. Jim Freeman over here and Bill Waite both represented us at a recent meeting that was done to conduct planning activities related to Highway 29. And a substantial portion of the audience thought that the topic of that meeting was the entire project road, which goes from Coyote Grade all the way to the Napa County border. Well, it turns out they were only discussing the Middletown portion of that road, but people didn't know that in advance, and they didn't figure it out until partway through the meeting. So there was a lot of frustration on the part of the folks who were there, because they thought one thing was going to happen and a totally different thing happened. So tonight I want to make sure that we understand what we're trying to accomplish this evening. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, very simple ones. How many of you expect a discussion tonight about the project cost and how it's going to be financed and how much it's going to cost you? Come on, you all are worried about that issue. Oh, look at that. Okay. Actually, that's not going to happen tonight. That's going to happen at the July 13th forum. So it's on the agenda for the July 13th forum. So all those who had your hands up, I expect to see you again on July 13th at this very same place, only it's a Saturday and it'll be 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, next question. How many of you expect that we're going to discuss options for the restaurant and golf facility tonight? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, fewer, but that actually is going to be discussed also at the July 13th forum. Okay, so now, how many of you expect we're going to discuss how this building could be remodeled or expanded tonight? Ah, you get the prize. That is what we're here for. So tonight, what we're going to be doing is, this is the first of two meetings to look at conceptual options for both this building and the golf and restaurant facility on Hartman Road. The second one being July 13th. So this is somewhat of a preview, a progress report, an opportunity for these gentlemen to get your ideas and concepts so they can refine them and bring them back to the community on July 13th. Okay, now the way the meeting, this planning and design process is being set up has three phases. Phase one we're in right now. We started it around April 25th. And what we're trying to do is answer the question, what do we want? What do we want from these buildings? And we're going to do a couple of things. What do we want each building to do for the community, both now and into the future? We're going to look at conceptual site and building design options. And we're going to look at probable construction costs. So all of those things are going to be done in this first phase, where we're conceptually looking at what these buildings have to offer to the community. That will be two meetings, tonight's and July 13th. Then there'll be a community discussion along with the board to decide which of those options that we examine is the best way to proceed for this community. So then we go to phase two. Once we narrow down the options to some that are preferred by the community, based not only on what functions the buildings will have, how well they'll be designed, but also what the project's options will cost, we'll go to the preliminary design phase. And preliminary design is basically, what will it look like? So after we have an idea of what we want to happen with the buildings, then we want to take a look, okay, so what will it look like? So these gentlemen will be helping us with that. We'll be looking at site and floor plan alternatives. We'll be looking at architectural styles, interior designs, materials, finishes, and trying to decide what's the best match of all those decisions for our community. And again, we'll be looking at the probable construction costs of those various options. So you'll be able to decide where is the appropriate level of construction quality for us that meets our needs. Then we go to the third phase, and that's the phase where we answer the question, how do we do it? And during this phase, we'll be developing a project development schedule, depending on what options are chosen, construction cost estimates, and a financing plan for however the project is put together. Remember, no decisions have been made about whether we're going to remodel, replace, do this building, do the other building, do both buildings, phase it in some way, do part of a building, do another part later. That's all part of this process. Okay. One more thing is how we're going to do the workshop. So we have two primary topics to discuss tonight. One is an evaluation that was done by Terry and Greg relative to the cost of bringing this building to code if we were to choose to remodel it. And then the second is they're going to give you some conceptual ideas of designs that they think the building could actually function better than it does now. And so there'll be a couple of options there to look at, maybe some potential site changes that could happen in the future. So the concept is they'll have the one presentation and then we'll do questions and comments. Then they'll have the second presentation on the conceptual designs and we'll do question and comments again. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the process that the election committee came up with when we had our candidates forums, both for Hidden Valley Lake board members and for county officials. Seem to work really, really well in groups of about this size. So the first thing we do is we have cards. You all have these cards presented to you. If you don't have any, we'll get you some. As the meeting progresses and that light bulb clicks, write down your comment, your question, or whatever. And then staff, if you'll hold up the card, staff members will come through and gather the cards from you. So then what we'll do is have the questions answered by these gentlemen in a order of trying to get the similar questions answered at the same time. Much more efficient. Now, we'll probably get some questions and comments that really aren't on tonight's agenda, because someone may want to comment on something that really is going to be discussed at the July 13 forum. And if that's the case, we'll simply keep those comments until July 13th, and we'll bring them up for answer at that time in discussion. So that's one way you can get information to us so we can ask questions of Greg and Terry. The other is, in this other room, we're going to have some posters of the various options that are going to be discussed. And so when you have a chance to take a break, you can wander over in there, you can take a look at those, and there's a table here with little Post-its on it. So if you get an idea, you look there and say, well, why don't you move that over here? It seems like it would work better. Put in a Post-it, stick it on the plan. So that's the other way you can provide us comments, because you'll be able to look at them when they're no longer on the screen. But while they're on the screen, go ahead. Put your ideas on the cards. Okay, so question.
I don't like the card idea.
I understand that, but it's a really big group.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, because what you're going to do is you're going to go through the cards and decide which one's the answer.
Well, we're going to answer them all. We're going to answer them
You
all.
already said you're going to put a few aside that don't pertain to tonight. So if they don't pertain to tonight, then obviously they're going to be ones that you don't really want to answer.
No, it would be something that, let's say someone asks a question about the restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, I'm not going to ask the gentleman about the restaurant tonight because we're talking about this building. But I will keep that question. And when we have the April 13th meeting and we are talking about the restaurant, that question will get asked. Okay.
Yes, with regard to design issues, very frequently, people don't have an immediate recommendation or solution or question. They need to look at that design for a while before they present a question or input. Will that be allowed? And if so, how will that be done after the meeting tonight?
That's a great question. I was going to answer at the tail end of the meeting about where you can get more information and how you can communicate with us. So if you're okay to wait till then, I'll do, okay.
Thank you.
Now, I want to introduce this subject, yes.
I just have one more question. I'm very curious, I mean, right now what you're talking about is redoing this building or enhancing this building and making it bigger. Why wasn't there an option brought to us to discuss to scale it way down, to not spend all that money? Right now, the way it's set up, I can't ask you that question based on this report, and I'm amidst why there wasn't a third option, which is to really scale this thing back.
If
There
you
may
look
be a
at
lot of
the,
support for that, and you won't know it unless you ask the question.
sure, and I would want you to put that on your card. When you look at the options that are in the brochure, one of those options is a as-is option. Another one is do-nothing option. So those are being considered. So if you want to suggest that we make the building a smaller square footage by doing X, Y, or Z, please do so.
Well, the third option you have is to really spend a lot of money and build a brand new building. That's your third option on it. Most people are going to shy away from that, I would think, because of the cost. My question then goes back to, why not on a much smaller scale to accommodate the pool and some meeting rooms rather than this grandiose structure? That was really my question.
Okay, I understand that, and I'll put that down on the questions for the board. Now, I want to bring you a little bit up to speed on a couple of items so that we're all on the same page. And this has to do with the work that was done by the board in 2011. Because what they did at that time is they took a really careful look at how our facilities are currently being used. So this is sort of the status quo of where we are. And when this place was built in the late 1960s, the community was a lot different than it is now. First of all, it was a community primarily of retirement and vacation homes. And up till the late 1990s, we still had 60% of the people living here were retired. It is now just the opposite of that. About 60% of the people who live in this community now are working folks, many of them having families. So our demographics have changed. Originally, this building only had two functions. One function was social events, and sometimes those were quite formal. You have a bar, a dance floor, a banquet room, and a kitchen. And these items were designed to have these social dining functions. And we had a lot of people here that have really fond memories of those Friday and Saturday night events. But you know what? I think the last one was about 15 years ago. The other function the building was designed for was a swimming pool. And so you have a swimming pool, you got shower rooms, you had a snack bar above the shower rooms that was open in the summer times for people who are patrons of the pool. So that's basically the way the building was put together in the late 1960s. So how is it currently used? So that's a good question. So we looked at the data for 2009 through 2012. So we have 4 years of information. And the first thing I want to do is put up the first slide. And the building is not used to a very great extent. We have around 20 to 22,000 users a year on this facility. And that is not actually a very large multiplier for a community of 5,000 people. You're talking about a multiplier of maybe 4. So as community centers go, this one does not get the amount of use as you would expect of a community of our size. So what is the use? Okay, first of all, 80% of all the use of this building is pool related. And that's only during the summer months. We have a couple of groups that use this dance floor for exercise. Probably a couple dozen people a week. And we did add recreation programs in 2011, and we also added a teen center. Both those programs take place in this building as well. The only other thing that happens in this building is we have group events. Little less than 10% of the use of the building. I want to take a little closer look at that. So what we did is we looked at the size of the groups that use this building. And what I want to primarily look at is the break between groups that are larger than 100 persons and groups that are smaller than 100 persons, which is right here. Smaller than 100, larger than 100. Those numbers represent the total number of groups using the building in those size ranges over the entire 4-year period of time. So we have about 2 events a month that are taking place in the building right now, over the last 4 years. About 60% of those are groups that are smaller than 100 people, and about 40% are groups that are larger than 100 people. If we go to the next slide, please. Interestingly enough, if you look at the top chart, 60% of the use of this building is Hidden Valley Lake related, and about 40% is used by the general public. However, if you look at the bottom chart, this is the percentage breakout for groups that are larger than 100 people. And for groups larger than 100 people, we have almost 90% of those groups being members of the general public. Granted, there are HVLA members involved in most of these organizations, but we've only had 4 Hidden Valley Lake related events in this building over the last 4 years that were larger than 100 people in size. So that gives us a little bit better idea of who's using the building and how they're using it. The next thing I want to look at is the cost of operating the building. Be next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this community center in 2012, this building cost about $49,000 to operate. A little bit less than half of that was labor for janitorial and maintenance services, and 45% of that was utility cost for operating the building. On the pool, in 2012, the cost is $89,000 to operate the pool. We have revenues from lessons and food and beverage sales of about $11,000. So our net for the pool is just under $80,000, $78,000. 53% of that is pool staff, 17% is janitorial and maintenance labor, and about 18% is utilities. So what should we do with this building is the question that's on the table. We have a kitchen that stands empty most of the time. We have bar and banquet rooms that get used about twice a month for social functions. Remember, questions are going to be at the end. The bar and the main room that get used for social events. We get some use of this dance floor for exercise purposes. This room gets used for summer recreational programs over a period of 3 months. And the old snack bar that's above the swimming pool gets used for the teen center for about 3 months. So that's basically where we are now. That's our current situation with this building. The Commons Committee took a really close look at the building, and their vision was that it has the potential to become a vibrant core for the community. These volunteers lobbied for some building improvements. Some of you may have noticed that the building is looking a lot more spiffy than it did the last time you were here. Well, that's because the volunteers did a lot of work on this building and did a lot of designing and installation of all the decorations. The other thing is they advocated that we actually begin having some recreation programs for adults this year, which we have added to our programs. So volunteers, where are you folks? Karen, you can't be the only one here. Okay, Bill, there's another one. Bill Wade, you were out there. Who else? Yeah, Barb's over there. Okay, so yeah, Mike was real heavily involved. So we had a bunch of people that really wanted to put the building in a little bit better condition. It had gotten very shabby. So now what we are basically ready for is for Terry and Greg to start talking about this building and how it might be utilized. And one of the things that these folks do so well is creating community. Creating community. This is what they do for many, many communities. And take a look at the drawings of some of the work they've done. So gentlemen, be pleased to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Bill. We should probably hire you to do our public relations. That's a great introduction for us. And thank you all for coming. It's always good to get feedback at the beginning of a project, and we hope to continue this.
Use your mic.
He's going to make me sing next. Again, thank you all for coming. It's always great to start off a project with a consensus building, and we hope to continue this with the association. Working with Bill's team so far has been tremendous. We've got a lot of good feedback. A lot of ideas have come out about, thank you, what we could do with this building and what some of the program elements of the building would be. How many of you came tonight to listen to about an assessment? I'll make it short. In 2007, Gentry Engineering was engaged to do a preliminary assessment of the facility. They went through and looked at 6 different elements that we're calling them, including the structural integrity of the building, ADA accessibility for handicap access, energy code requirements, fire and life safety code requirements, the condition of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, and a separate report was done for termite and rot damage. We were engaged to come back in, 6 years later, and look at the assessment, rewalk the building, look at the conditions, kind of verify what was here, and we found some other conditions that, and not a lot of them, to update the report and report back to the board about what the condition of the building is. We think this facility has some great bones to it. It's a phenomenal design. It's an icon for the community. So we think there's a real opportunity to save what we've got here. To do the assessment, we walked through with a structural engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and have a cost estimator on board who's actually a general contractor in the Sacramento area that's built community centers and golf club houses. And the importance there is they were able to walk it with us, and we could point to things, and they understood what might need to be done. They came up with some ideas of how to approach things a little differently, a little more cost effectively, and that's one of the elements of the report. Some of the highlights and the differences from the Gentry report. The structural engineer believes that the building is in good condition, has been maintained well over time. They agree with the conclusions of the Gentry report. However, they found some opportunities in the lateral system to save some money, so that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. Accessibility, we don't have a lot of contradictions with the Gentry report. There are a lot of non-compliant conditions here, and that would be one of the major cost elements of the project. As an example, the restrooms down for the pool area, if you've ever been in there, undersized for current codes, very difficult even for able-bodied people to walk around in there, and by current code is undersized for the number of fixtures and the number of showers that we need. Energy efficiency, basically the building's HVAC and water and heating systems comply with current code, not the most efficient systems. They are even original to the building, and some of them may be 8 years old, which is getting close to the end of their useful life, and one of the recommendations is to upgrade all of that. Lighting upgrades, and if you look around, all the windows are single pane, and there's quite a bit of dry rot around the window frame, so that's another area that we'd want to look at as far as upgrades. Firelight Safety, there was a little anomaly in the Gentry report. We went through and did an analysis of the building for exiting, and it's really how many exits and their location and distance to exits. It's fairly code compliant. We've got a couple opportunities here with doors swinging in the wrong direction in this room. And by today's code, there would need to be some fire-rated separations between the office use and the mechanical room. Other than that, we're in pretty good shape for the building. Electrically, there wasn't a lot to be found beyond the Gentry report, which identified a real need to come through and maybe rewire the whole building. There's a lot of old panels, a lot of open systems that are fairly dangerous that we want to look at. And plumbing, of course, with the pool, restroom remodel, and the kitchen areas, those are some areas that would need to be upgraded. And the pool drainage system is in violation of current codes as far as its drainage and capacity while draining the pool. All in all, the other part of the report was, what are these things that need to happen would require permits? And basically anything beyond basic maintenance of the building, painting, recarpeting, things like that will require building permits. And depending on the extent of the remodel, some structural upgrades might be necessary. Of course, accessibility upgrades would be required for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then other things would tailor along with that. If we change room uses, mechanical systems would want to be changed to accommodate the density, the use of the new room. And I do have a... Working with the cost estimator, we went through all of our new findings, the Gentry report findings, which had a cost estimate contained within that. We went through line item by line item and have come up with some revised estimates that I have that printed out. I'll read them up here if I can see that far. Basically, the Gentry report to bring this current building up to current codes would be about $2.5 million. We went back and looked at it, and partly because the structural system efficiencies we found in approaching it differently, we came up with about $1.9 million in remodels to bring it up to code. Structural systems, we found approximately $256,000 in savings. ADA compliance was one of the things that was most expensive because building configuration, the size of hallways, the location of doors, just getting a ramp or an elevator up to this floor was $160,000 when you look at the elevator itself, a pit, the rework that would need to be done. Energy code requirements, we found about $136,000 less than the Gentry report. And we were selecting a more efficient window system, and our contractor felt that the labor to install on the Gentry report was a little on the other side of where we needed to be. Fire and safety code, we found about $81,000 less. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing upgrades, about $27,000 less. And that stems from, rather than replacing piece by piece by piece, is come back in and design a system that could operate the entire building, but also look at separation of systems so that we got efficiency when we're running one, like the pool facility or up here, where your energy costs would be less. And the termite and rot repair, we didn't go back and reevaluate that, so we used the numbers from the Gentry report. So all in all, it's about a $600,000 reduction in what the Gentry report had for bringing this building up to current code. As we go through the plans, if you look at it carefully, we think that probably 60 or 70% of that work would be done as par course for doing a remodel. So it's really not an upgrade based on current code conditions, but can be absorbed in the remodel cost of the building. Okay, any questions at this point?
Did you include private fire sprinklers in that?
Question was, did we include fire sprinklers? Yes, we have fire sprinklers and a fire alarm system that were identified as an upgrade need.
I thought the building had good bones.
It's got great structural bones. It's got issues with the restrooms on both floors as far as accessibility, which require them to be expanded because of the clearance requirements. Doors need to have wider access to pull sides and push sides and items like that. Sir?
This $1.9 million that you're quoting, would that effectively be just to bring it up to code, or would you consider that a remodel?
If we were to just bring this building up to code, that would be 1.9 million. But I think 60 or 70% of that could be utilized toward a remodel, because we're going to have to redo a lot of those spaces anyways. Ma'am?
Could you prioritize this work over a period of years so that the costs are spread out? I mean, we're all here because of the money. Let's not, let's be real. Could this be prioritized so that you do, like, say, in 2014 you do the ADA stuff, and then you do certain other things?
There's some economies in doing that. There's some expense in doing that, because if you're doing an ADA upgrade, accessibility upgrade, and you're redoing a restroom, you really want to go in and change your plumbing systems to do that. And we may be in a discussion with the building officials about when is the appropriate time that they would require fire sprinklers to come into the facility. And there could be some savings on your insurance to do that also.
Are you familiar with what happened at Bennett Valley?
No.
Well, Bennett Valley is basically did the same thing that we're proposing here in 2007, and they're about ready to go belly up, and they owe $5 million because they assumed that people would come to their new buildings, and they had all this unbelievable idea that things were going to be hunky-dory. Well, they're now the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it. Well, the same thing's going to happen here, but it's going to be the homeowners that are going to have to pay for this. And check on, see what Bennett Valley did. They're over in Santa Rosa, and they actually have a much more beautiful golf course. And I think you'd find it quite interesting.
But one of the things we like to do, and we call it, sooner or later the budget raises its ugly head. We like to engage the budget as we go along, so that if we look at a remodel option, we know what it's going to cost, and then it's out to the decision makers about whether that can be supported by the use of the building. Ma'am?
Do you have an estimate of the remaining useful life of the swimming pools? Did you look at those and how they function?
No, we did not. Bill might be able to speak to that, but that was not part of our assessment. We do know that the deck around the pool got some issues with accessibility, and adding a handicap lift to get people into the pool would be one of the accessibility requirements.
Sandy, I'll look into that question and get back to you. We did not do that, but it's easily done. Yeah.
I have my card written, I didn't know we were asking now. My question was regarding an elevator, and this person doesn't really believe that we need the elevator for ADA. We have the doors from the deck that could allow people to come in. It seemingly would do some grading out here. At a recent event, we had some people who actually would help walk down this, and I mean, if we were just done something out here, it seems like that could be an entry, and we'd have to spend $160,000 on an elevator.
That's one of the things that we need to engage the building official with, because they are the sounding board for those items. There are some fine lines about primary use of a facility, and depending on whether this is any of the facilities up here are available down on the lower level or vice versa, that's when that drives it. If there's, to us at this point, if there's very little change in the use of the building and the size of the building, there are some exceptions in the building code that would preclude the necessity of an elevator. There may be some functional reason that elevator is part of the program. And there are opportunities, we'll show you a little bit later, about getting a ramp up to this area. But it's all about equal facilitation it's not just wheelchairs. A lot of people have difficulty walking, so that's the balance that we have to look at. Bill?
Structural question. These piers here, columns, they're weight bearing, I presume. Is there any thought given to replacing them? Because they kind of break up the room, and the tables admit, you know, you're kind of limited as to how you arrange the room.
Given an adequate budget, we can make these disappear. He wanted to know if there was an opportunity to make these columns go away because of the opportunities that would, in fact, you know, I can't see everybody, you probably can't see me. Can we make them disappear? And again, with an adequate budget, we can make anything happen. Ma'am?
Given the fact that this room is not used very often anymore, and it seems like all the use is in the pool, is there an option, as this gentleman said before, to put this building into kind of abeyance and just work on the pool area and not worry about this? Because we're not obviously bringing in enough revenue with outside events to maintain this building.
That's a good consideration. If we call it mothball part of the building, we'll put that on the list.
I mean, it's obvious the building's not being utilized. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But the thing is that what I don't understand is that, I mean, I understand what the compliance is going to kill us. The thing is, it's better to have status quo. I mean, just keep it the way it is, and you can hire people to fix it, and if need be. But I mean, really, I mean, let's be sensible. $1.9 million is a lot of money for this community, and we're only at the community center. We haven't gotten down to the July 13th.
Right. There are, because the Americans with Disability Act is a civil law. It's not part of the building department. It's not part of the building code. And really the enforcement of that is by people who come in and say, I can't get there. And then the lawsuits come. That's the exposure, that's the cost. And you could come in and do restroom upgrades to get some accessible restrooms and possibly do some temporary things in the summertime. Those are all, you know, weigh the goods and the bads with those ideas. There's somebody behind a column. We'll get rid of it. Ma'am?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out one of the factors in regard to the use of the building. It's basically been locked to the community for use the last 2 years. So that's one reason why it hasn't gotten a lot of community use.
And that's part of this is what can we do to encourage use of the building and get people back up here? And that's, if we reconfigure it, will they come? And that's part of this whole discussion, sir.
But it is always freezing cold, no matter if there's anyone in here or not. Are the pool equipment, is it up to date? Is it current? Mechanical systems to keep it running efficiently? Is that part of this?
Let's say the mechanical systems are marginal. I ran 3 pools at Sea Ranch, and they were definitely a higher grade of commercial equipment than we have here. We are kind of like one step above a residential pool as far as our equipment, but it is functional. We have good water quality. We passed our health inspections every single year. We do have to maintain that. Our pool heater is scheduled for replacement next year, for example. But no, it works fine, Charlie.
So we are going to look at making the pool heater more efficient.
When we upgrade, yes, definitely.
Ma'am?
Hi. I think everyone is really scared because you guys are talking about big numbers. It probably would be really helpful for us if we could see, if we had to borrow $10 million, I'm just throwing a number out, what would the assessment be and what would it be over a number of years? Because the only thing I can contribute here is to say that when I moved into a gated community that had a lot of amenities, I made a commitment to keep up my property, just like I made a commitment to keep up my home. And I am on a fixed income like a lot of other people here, but I also feel like we have to make a commitment to keep up our our community. And part of the appeal and part of the way that this community will come back, and it is going to come back, property values are coming back up. I already see it. I see it around my house already. It may take a number of years. We have a lot of other things going on in this community. It's not going to stay this way. This isn't pickup. It does this. It comes and goes. You know, we have to be more positive, I think. And I think if we could see what the assessment is, what is it going to look like to each member, household, whatever, I think we would probably feel more comfortable. Because we're
talking about big numbers, I was like, oh, what's it gonna cost us?
Sure, no, I understand. I was actually at a meeting talking to some folks, and someone told me, I had heard that we were going to have a special assessment of $8,000. And I said, where'd you get that number? Well, I was told that that's what we're going to have. And I said, well, we got 3,300 properties here. Multiply it out. What do you get? Oh, 24 million. Yeah, probably not going to need that. So there's a lot of numbers flying around out there. And what we're going to be doing at the July 13th forum is the Finance Committee is currently working on not a final financing plan, because we certainly don't have any final costs, because we haven't made decisions about do we do this or do we do that, but at least a feasibility to answer your very question. Is this even remotely feasible for a community of our size with the resources we have to do a project of this magnitude? And if you'll please come back on July 13th, we'll have some discussion of that.
Well, I think you made a great point. You're concerned about your property value, but there's also others coming into the community, and seeing a community center that's got some vibrancy and some use is going to draw people a little bit more than a building that is vacant quite a bit of the year and not used. Yeah.
He said the board was going to, for the common good of the common, they were going to tell you the options that would be feasible. How these options, is it going to be coming to a vote for us? How is that option going to be arrived at, the predominant option?
For that answer, you're going to have to wait till November the 16th at the annual meeting. Because that's when the board will have made some decisions about what options they want to present to the community, how they want to do that, and there's complexities in all of those issues about how the community decides. So I can't answer it today. November 16th I will be able to, or the board members will.
Okay, one more and then Bill's going to get me because we're supposed to use cards. Sir?
Yeah.
Under the Gentry report, they said that this building and the Hartman building, usually around 40 to 50 years old, have reached their life expectancy. So evidently you guys don't agree with that, or do you agree with that?
There are some opportunities with this building. Structurally, it's in very good shape. Roof, siding, windows, all part of a discussion we'd want to have about upgrades. And all of it is, there's quite a bit of dry rot and damage to the siding. The window is part of an energy upgrade, which would reduce energy costs. And the roof, getting some more insulation up there to reduce the energy costs of mechanical and electrical, or mechanical systems, heating and cooling, all part of that discussion. And
well, I'm a contractor, and I know when you start tearing off dry rot from the outside, a lot of times it goes a lot deeper than you think it was just on the outside.
yes, we've been down that path. Actually, the idea, this came up from the general contractor. The Gentry report suggested going through and really searching out the electrical conduit in the walls and removing the drywall in the walls. The general contractor said, you know, there's quite a bit of damage to the exterior. There's less plywood out there that would need to be replaced. Let's pull it off from the outside and redo that, which would be, that's where we got some of the savings in the electrical section.
Have you factored in cost overrun?
There is a contingency built into our estimate, and I believe the Gentry report had a contingency in also. And very rough order of magnitude numbers, and this is just, you know, based on written documents, not any plan documents, and discussions with the contractor and a walkthrough.
Besides the energy efficiency considerations, has there been any thought put into installing solar or other ways to reduce the cost of utilities?
We have had that discussion, and part of it is the possibility of photovoltaic for electrical generation, and I think we'd also want to look at solar for pool heating. We've had there's a great project in Roseville, the new pool down there, and quite a bit of their pool heat has come from solar.
Just one more question. One more.
Okay.
I'm beginning to think, you know, you're dreaming big, but I'm beginning to think it's a little inappropriate for this particular time with the economy the way it is. There are HUD Hidden Valley Lake. HUD is a great program for low-income people. It is absolutely outstanding. It's not appropriate for a gated community. That's what we're looking at. If you have all this money to spend, why not buy the HUD houses before they become HUD houses from the banks, so that you can be assured of some people with some socioeconomic levels that can afford raises in their association fees. So, you know, and I hate to say this, and with all due respect to the fine company, I'm sure it's a very fine company, I'm seeing a lot of signs. We tried to hire a landscaper. We got a really top-notch outfit. They were great, good reviews and everything from the Bay Area. $11,000 to our landscaping. We had it done locally for $5,500. Now, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't exactly like they gave us the original estimate for it, but we're very satisfied with it, and no one knows that we saved that much money. So that's something we should all consider.
Thank you very, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the kind of input that these kinds of meetings, and we hope to get that as we move forward. Thank you.
This was great because I expected hardly anyone would want to ask questions about this, and I have 20 that came in from you folks, and I sure appreciate it. I thought I saw one more hand towards the rear, or did I? Okay, so I think we're ready to, oh, I did see a card flipping around back here. In the back there. So is this a time where you'd like to go on to the actual design work?
Yes.
Let's do that and take a look at some of the ideas. The cards are coming in. I'll be sure to keep track of those.